You will present your big love, I would dare say, Sergei Rachmaninoff, with a very special birthday present. He would turn 150 years, an age people seldom really reach in person, on April 1st, and you will release a record called My Rachmaninoff. Isn't that a bit daring to say this is my Rachmaninoff?
Yes, but I think that's exactly why I wanted to do it. Because, especially me as a non-Russian, and you know, I'm a German pianist that is trained by Russian pianists. I feel there is so much identification with this composer since childhood that, of course, I've been thinking about that title a lot. And I am aware that it might be misunderstood, but I think also this is very important, that in order to say something, you have to
stir up some controversy, or
well, you have to be aware that it can also, like, it can go both ways, basically. And I think what I'm trying to say is very clear to me, and I think when people listen to the album and start to understand what I'm trying to say with it and what I'm trying to say with the music, they understand why I called it My Rachmaninoff.
And you have selected a number of pieces that are very dear to you, beginning with one that you met when you were 9 years old, right?
Yeah, about 9 or 10, yes. So
tell me about the story, please.
The thing is, so this is the first piece that I've heard of Rachmaninoff, and it's also one of the first pieces that he actually composed, the prelude in a C-sharp minor.
And first he ever composed was this piece?
Well, it's one of the first pieces that he still composed. I think he was 19 when he composed it, so he was still studying. And I still remember, it was at a piano competition, and an older competitor was warming up with that piece, and I was talking to my piano teacher, so I had already played, I think, or warmed up at least, and I heard these immense chords, you know, and at first I heard A, G sharp, C sharp, so it was so shocking what that did to me, and how deep that went into my soul, into my body, into my heart, even though I was still so young. I mean, this was before puberty, so before actually knowing what romantic feelings or what dramatic feelings a human being could feel. And these three notes already told me so much that I fell in love with them immediately. And this piece is also the piece that I'm starting with on the new album.
So it's a kind of coming back to your beginnings as a pianist in a way.
To my beginnings, and probably also to Rachmaninoff's beginnings, because, as I said, it's one of the first pieces that he composed while still being a late teenager as well. And so I'm starting with this piece. I'm playing two more preludes that are very dear to me, that I've played at several occasions, and I'm also playing the last piece that he's composed for solo piano, the Corelli Variations. So throughout my career, I've always played Rachmaninoff, and it's also, I don't know, maybe by chance or by fate, he's always been there when things have happened in my life. So, for example, the second piano concerto, which is not on the CD because I've recorded it already, obviously. Yes. So the second piano concerto is a piece that I've played to my piano mentor just a few hours before he died.
Sergei Krainev.
Yes, Vladimir Krainev. Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
So, and I still remember playing it to him, and I still, you know, when these emotional things happen, you remember everything.
It's a goosebump moment for me, even when you tell this, you know, because
really?
you can tell there are pivotal moments in a career of a musician, and when that keeps occurring to you, Rachmaninoff here and there, and in such important moments in your life, he's there. Yeah.
Yes, and you know, you remember everything. You remember the face of the people you saw. I remember his face. I remember the weather that was behind him. So I remember it was sunny, and you know, I played this piece, and it also felt, even though I didn't know he would die 6 hours later or 7 hours later, it felt like as if something was coming to an end.
Wow.
So and Rachmaninoff's music is also, it doesn't try to neglect your feelings. For me, I feel Rachmaninoff's music really gives you the feeling that there's somebody who understands you, and that it is okay to feel unwell. So he doesn't try to tell you, oh no, try to feel better. He's not trying to make you feel better, actually. He's trying to show you a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion, and
but without overdoing again.
Yes.
I mean, I think this is important, because then it can become sentimental or kitschy or whatever, or untrue.
No, yeah, and I think that very earnest feelings are not sentimental. Because you're trying to hold yourself together. And I think it's that struggle when you play Rachmaninoff as well, because of course you could be hyper sentimental when you play his music. But it is this struggle between, on one hand, playing this music and not just making it all about yourself, but making it about the emotions that you have. That Rachmaninoff, who was at points a very depressed person himself, and he put all of that into music as well. So to hold it together, and I think that gives the music so much more beauty. When you're in the audience and you listen to a pianist and you can feel that this pianist is trying to hold himself together, to not, let's say, like to cry on stage, for example.
Yeah. And of course it does communicate with the audience, because everybody has had these moments, It gives comfort to see a musician who is so honest with these dark sides of the mood and of emotional inner worlds.
Yes, and you have to embrace it. And this is what I love so much about Rachmaninoff, that you embrace sadness, you embrace depression, and if you think about the definition of melancholy, it's a feeling of happiness. It's happiness and sadness. So you bath in these supposedly negative feelings, but they make you feel good.
And what's coming out at the end of the sadness is joy. At
Exactly.
Some point. So it's a transitory moment in some ways.
And it's a very honest joy.
To release, yeah.
Yes.
It's the most honest joy possibly one could
Exactly.
have. Yeah, it's nice. Next year also sees the 80th birthday or death day of Rachmaninoff. He passed away in 1943, and one thing that's really striking with him is that he did record so much of his own music, which can be, I think, a blessing and a curse for every pianist, because you can't neglect it. And then it also poses the question, why on earth would you record it at all if he has already done it?
Well, I wouldn't call myself a composer, but I've composed pieces as well. And I think when you compose a piece and you play it, it's a totally different approach than when you know the music and it's not yours and you're borrowing it and you're trying to find your own genuine emotions in that music. I think it's something completely different. So even though, as I said, I wouldn't call myself a composer, especially a composer that plays his own compositions, I think there's this completely different approach. And I think Rachmaninoff's music is so personal that as long as you really identify with it and as long as you feel there's something so personal about this music that I find in my own life, in my own experience, in my own soul, you still say something with his music that is different from what he would say with it.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I mean, there is, in our terms, one would say there's reference recordings that happen to exist because the composer himself played his music. So this, of course, gives people some guideline on how to play. And then people say, yeah, of course, I mean, in the recording studio, he played it this way, and live maybe he played it another way. And I'm just wondering, what does that make? I could imagine that a pianist would just avoid listening at all to it because the text exists and it speaks to you as a pianist who is working with the piece. And then having him play can say, okay, this is already done, so why should I bother?
Well, I think the thing with reference recordings is, and that's my opinion, so it's a very personal
Composer
question.
playing his music reference recordings.
Excuse me?
Composer playing his own
Exactly.
music reference recordings.
No, but also you have these general reference recordings of certain pieces by certain pianists, and you're like, this is how it should be played. And I think it's good to know, but then it's also good to know, so you know what you want to do differently. Because this is why we're artists. We're not artists to copy reference recordings or to be a bad Sokolov, for example, or to be a bad copy of Christian Zimmermann, or whatever. So we don't have these reference recordings to try to imitate them, but to get an inspiration maybe, and
to
also
deviate from it probably. And
yes, even though it's a very subconscious thing. I think it's something that I would never listen to a recording and be like, okay, I really love it, but now I have to do something that is completely different. So it has to be very natural and very authentic. And actually, I like listening to reference recordings once I know what I want from a piece. Like once I've played it, once I've learned it, once I've practiced it enough, so I have an idea what I want to do with the piece, where I want to go, what I want to say with the piece, and then listen to a reference recording just to see whether it's the same or whether it's completely different or what is different and why it's different. So it is very important to stay true to yourself, especially with this kind of music, with Rachmaninoff's music, where I feel every pianist is playing so differently from him and from each other.
And it is so much yours, as you say, with my Rachmaninoff.
Yes, it's very much mine, yes. Yeah. And also with this album, I'm trying to, of course, find a connection between the biographies, because from what I know of Rachmaninoff, we also have similarities in character. And probably, I mean, I don't know how he's dealt with his problems and with his situations. We of course know how he was treated and everything, but it is from what I read about him and from what I feel when I play his music, I feel very much understood in many situations. Also now during the pandemic, there was this opening of finally playing with the symphony orchestra again in Hong Kong, actually, which ended up being a concert without audience that was only recorded. But also there I played Paganini's Rhapsody, Rachmaninoff's Paganini Rhapsody, which also is like a fight between the dark side and like Paganini on one hand and Dies Irae on the other hand, and in the end you see who wins the fight. So it's always been Rachmaninoff who's managed to give me comfort.
We've spoken much about the darker, moodier sides, the sadness sides, but there's also some flamboyance in his music, and I see some of the flamboyance also in your character. Maybe this is something we need to add as a missing piece for the mirroring of who he is for you.
Actually, yeah, true. I mean, you're very right about it. And I think, well, you call that sanguinic, right? So I think also as a musician and also as a person, I tend to be quite extreme, I would say. And it's all deeply felt. So when I'm happy, I'm really happy, and it's not fake, it's not anything. It's when I'm happy, and I think I'm not a negative person. Like when I speak with people, I feel when I'm in a normal mood, I should be quite polite and friendly, and it's very honest. So I think on one hand, when you're happy and when you're free of these deep emotions and these, as you call them, dark sides, you also feel light. You feel much lighter than when you actually never experience these dark sides. Mm-hmm. So I think these dark sides are very extreme. Like when I'm very sad, I'm also good at dragging my friends and my family into it. So I'm very good at making everybody in the room feel bad. Exactly. So I'm very good at that. But I would say that I'm also quite good at the opposite. So
cheering up everybody, yes, when
I'm in the mood.
When it's honest, when it's
exactly
in the moment. So we can look forward to an album that has both sides.
Definitely.
Of both Rachmaninoff and Alexander Krechel.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.